Far beneath the palace of the treacherous King Minos, in the damp darkness of an inescapable labyrinth, a horrific beast stalks the endless corridors of its prison, enraged with a bloodlust so intense that its deafening roar shakes the earth. It is easy to see why the Minotaur myth has a long history of being disregarded as pure fiction. However, there's a good chance that the Minotaur and other monsters and gods were created by our early ancestors to rationalize the terrifying things that they saw in the natural world, but did not understand. And while we can't explain every aspect of their stories, there may be some actual science that reveals itself when we dissect them for clues. So, as far as we know, there have never been human-bull hybrids. But the earliest material written about the Minotaur doesn't even mention its physical form. So that's probably not the key part of the story. What the different tellings do agree upon, however, is that the beast lives underground, and when it bellows, it causes tremendous problems. The various myths are also specific in stating that genius inventor Daedalus carved out the labyrinth beneath the island of Crete.
The island of Crete. We can see this quite clearly in the archaeological record because the Cretans had a distinct hobby of building massive palaces. Out of the half-dozen spread across the island, the largest and most famous of these is Knossos, home of the legendary King Minos, hence the name Minoan. It was first excavated in the 1900s by Sir Arthur Evans, who stumbled onto some unusually ancient-looking pottery. Within 5 years, he and his team uncovered a sprawling building complex made of smooth quarried stone with such amenities as skylights, running water, buried sewer lines, and gorgeous frescoes. Clearly no slouch on the aesthetics, but most impressive was the pure scale of the place. The large central courtyard was surrounded by hundreds of rooms for all manner of different purposes, going beyond the typical administrative offices and private residences to include religious spaces, extensive warehouses, artisan workshops, and something approximating a marketplace. Those last three might seem a bit out of place in a royal abode, no matter how ginormous, but they imply a unique structure to the Minoan economy. If the palaces could stock a kingdom's worth of supplies ranging from local Cretan produce kept fresh in cold underground ceramics all the way to overseas luxury items, it's likely these compounds served as mass redistribution hubs, taking in everything and doling it back out as needed. So if the Minoans were so big and tough, why didn't they stick around? The most dramatic theory attributes their decline to the island of Thera, which used to be an oval until 1628 BC when a volcano blew it to bits and sank into the sea, throwing a giant cloud of ash across the southeast Aegean. This does explain why the Minoan site on the island is preserved with positively Pompeian precision, and it left an absolutely gorgeous landscape for tourists to enjoy when they go visit Santorini, but it doesn't explain the Minoan collapse, as it's 2 centuries ahead of schedule. Plato likely drew on the distant memory of this explosion when he dreamed up the story of Atlantis.
In a single day and night of misfortune, the island of Atlantis disappeared into the depths of the sea.
The Minoan hypothesis suggests that Plato modeled Atlantis on Minoan Crete. The Minoans were a prosperous Bronze Age civilization, famous for the colossal palaces that served as their ritual and economic centers. For half a millennium they flourished, establishing close trade links with Egypt and the Near East. Then, toward the end of the Bronze Age, almost every Minoan palace was destroyed by fire, and invaders from mainland Greece settled among the ruins.
The Bronze Age collapse is one of history's greatest mysteries. All along the crescent, from modern-day Egypt to Greece, there once existed spectacular ancient civilizations. Civilizations that had lasted thousands of years. Then, after just a few decades, all of it was reduced to rubble. Between the years of 1200 and 1150 BCE, archaeologists found city after city burned, leveled to the ground. After thousands of years of thriving growth and prosperity, almost every major Bronze Age civilization collapsed in less than the span of a single human lifetime.
The best-known version of the Minoan hypothesis was proposed by an Irish classicist named John Luce. Luce thought that both the glorious reign and catastrophic end of Minoans were echoed in the Atlantis story. Pointing to some Minoan-looking customs in the Critias, he suggested that either Plato or one of his ancestors had traveled to Egypt, and there encountered a garbled description of Minoan Crete that became the basis of the Atlantis story.
This journal is the key to finding the lost continent of Atlantis.
They came from around the world, an elite team of explorers.
Make us proud, boy!
In search of the greatest mystery ever known.
Atlantis is waiting.
Crete sits on a piece of continental crust called the Aegean Block, and has a bit of oceanic crust known as the Nubian Block sliding right beneath it. This sort of geologic feature, called a subduction zone, is common all over the world and results in lots of earthquakes. However, in Crete, the situation is particularly volatile, as the Nubian Block is attached to the massive buoyant continental crust that is Africa. When the Nubian Block moves, it does not go down nearly as easily or as steeply as oceanic crust does in most other subduction zones. Instead, it violently and abruptly forces sections of the Mediterranean upwards in an event called uplift. And Crete is in uplift central. We don't have detailed seismic records from the days of King Minos, but we do know from fossil records and geologic evidence that Crete has experienced serious uplift events that sometimes exceeded 30 feet in a single moment. As for the people of Crete, their earthquakes brought only destruction and barren lands.
It's possible that these earthquakes were absolutely wrecking the economy in the region. Some of the cities that were abandoned for mysterious reasons may have in fact been abandoned after a seismic event. There's at least some evidence of earthquakes destroying cities in Greece, Anatolia, the Levant, and Cyprus.
Giant cities, thriving civilizations, literacy, art, trade, wonders, temples, and palaces. Then nothing but cinder and ash.